Welcome back to JB Squared. I am JB Hager, joined by Johan Bernil. We're going to take a look at Stage 8 recap from today and look ahead at a mountain finish on Stage 9 tomorrow. And that has some historical significance so that Johan will share a great story with us. Before we get into everything that happened today and what's going to happen tomorrow, let's check in real quick with a couple of our sponsors, and I've got a couple of offers for you. Today's show is brought to you by Ventum. Maybe you're a lot like me and you were like a roadie forever and you got kind of curious about gravel bikes, what all this hype and the explosion of gravel racing, and you want to pick one up. I think this is really, really cool. You can get into a new GS1, their new gravel bike, with the SRAM Apex AXS starting for just $2,999. Now, of course, you can always upgrade from that, whatever you want, the next level of SRAM or other components, whatever your preference is. And this is what I think is really cool about Ventum. Both on their road bikes and their gravel bikes, it's the same frame, whether you're speccing it out as a $3,000 bike or a $15,000 bike. It's the exact same frame. A lot of other brands will downgrade the carbon, is probably the best way to describe it, to get the price point down. It's the same exact frame. And then, of course, you could always change the components later and just be on the best of the best. So if you're looking for an NS1, the road bike, or the GS1, definitely check out Ventum Bikes. Spend some time on their site. Go through the build out. You get to pick everything. You get to decide which handlebars. You get to decide what crank length you want. You can decide on the included alloy wheels or upgrade them to something bigger and better if you like. It's really fun to go through the build, tweak the colors, send it to a friend, get their feedback, and you can get 10% off when you use the code WEDU, WEDU, at checkout at ventumracing.com/themove. Today's show is also brought to you by Ketone IQ, made by our friends at HVMN. In fact, on an upcoming show, we're going to talk to Michael, who's behind the company, and he's a really interesting guy. We had him on last year, so look forward to that. But I've been taking it for a few months, and I can definitely notice a difference with the mental clarity, especially coming into this month when we're here in July. Recording, I'm co-hosting 2 shows and then doing a lot of production, putting things out. In years past, I would just feel like bonked, now I think it's a lot of it's attributed to Ketone IQ, because I started taking them 2-3 months ago, every day, daily out here, and I just feel like I have that extra level of energy to push on through and the mental clarity to just push on through. It's really made a difference in my life. So if you want to try, I honestly recommend you try it for like 3 months. You will see a difference, but you can do a subscription and save 30% off with our code. So 30% off your subscription order of Ketone IQ at hvmn.com/themove. Again, visit hvmn.com/themove and subscribe upon checkout for 30% off. Okay, Johan, let's jump right in with an unfortunate incident from today's tour. Everyone has been just completely into the story of Mark Cavendish trying to break the record for most Tour de France stage wins over the great Eddie Merckx. And that's just a storyline we've been glued to for a couple of years. Crashed out today, broken collarbone. I think, it's funny. It's interesting when you watch bike racing with former pros. You guys can look at the way they are sitting on the pavement and immediately know if they're going to get up or not. This was the case. You could see him holding his shoulder and elbow, and we all knew his tour was over.
Yeah, so unfortunate, especially after yesterday's second place almost win. It looked really good for Cav. There's obviously was no guarantee, but with still 3 or 4 bunch sprints left, there was definitely a possibility that he could get that win number 35. He looked in great shape, and there you see, how fragile the riders are, and how everything can be over in a heartbeat. Look at Carapaz, stage 1. One of the contenders for the podium out in stage 1. It was really, and it was probably that crash, or it's one of those crashes that can happen so many times, that happen that almost happens so many times. There's a little wave in the peloton, you touch the brakes, you either, most of the time they don't crash. And then when you crash, okay, you fall over. And so he was not the first one to crash. I think, if we looked at the replay, there was a little movement, probably like 10, 20 riders in front of him. There was a wave through the peloton. And then finally, he was there on the ground. Didn't look like they were going very fast either. It was just very, very unfortunate. Collarbones, obviously, we all know that collarbones is the most frequent injury for a cyclist. And yeah, I mean, when I saw him laying there, I said, "Oh, that's over. That's like, you could see it straight away." He was in incredible pain, and yeah. It's so sad to see, because I really, really believe that he had that stage win in him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then to see the devastation, on his face when he was there in the ambulance, staring in front of him. Yeah.
And on the heels of him saying that he's in his best form ever.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a bit of a euphemism,
maybe the best he's ever felt is different than the best peak form.
I think what he means is that he definitely felt that, like, he was growing, and that he felt a lot better than the Giro, and it kind of all was going to plan. He did the Giro to prepare for the Tour, finally won that last stage in Rome, and now he got close yesterday. I mean, in his mind, yesterday evening, after getting over the disappointment, there was no doubt in his mind that he would get that stage number 35. And then a few hours later, you're on the deck and it's game over.
Now, once this all happened, I immediately thought of, like, what is Johan going to say? Let's say you're his director or his, a father figure to Mark Cavendish. People are going to start asking, do you stick around another year? What would you say to him?
Well, JB, it's very different what I would have said back in the days than what I would say now.
Okay, right? Give us both. I want to hear both. Now you got me. I think, if you're, well, first of all, he's out of a contract, right? So he has announced his retirement already. And that was complicated last year to get that one contract.
Yeah. So I think that he's obviously shown that he can still do it. Getting a contract should not be a problem. I think he got really caught up into this, project of this new team with Jérôme Pinault, who was an ex-teammate of his at Quick-Step back in the days. And then basically that team fell through and it was very, very late. All the teams were full. And obviously Mark Cavendish, he wants to feel some appreciation of his palmares, right? There's a certain value to it. He's not going after the money, but he wants to feel valued, So I think that was the big problem, that he was in October, November, there was no team. He started negotiating in December, and budgets were done, So it would take an extra effort of a particular sponsor to open up, more budget, and that's the way these teams are ran. So I can't say me being in my years as a director that I would say no, because sorry. I agreed with Lance's comeback when he was 38. It was not the smartest decision, neither from him or from me.
So that the old you would have said, Mark, you're coming back next year.
Oh, let's go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I would say no. Listen, Mark Cavendish is a legend, whether he gets that victory number 35 or not. Right. It will not change anything to, his legacy. The guy won 150 something or 160 races, 54 stages in Grand Tours, 34. I mean, he shares a record with Eddie Merckx. I mean, if you're able to say in cycling that you share a record with Eddie Merckx, you are one of the greatest.
Yeah, he's in a position now. He will be talked about long after he's gone.
Yeah.
That's plus, what more could you ask for?
On the contrary, there's absolutely no guarantee that it's going to happen. So is it worth it? I personally think that, and I could be wrong. In my opinion, this will be it for him. He's come to an age, he has done it all. He's the father of 5 children. Let's not forget, so all of his children have had to miss him a lot for a lot of important events. I think personally, and I spoke to him quite a bit when we were in Mallorca together last year on the Move Mallorca cycling camp. And he's a family man. It was clear. Look, even when he announced his retirement in the Giro, he did it together with his wife and his kids present on that press conference. So I think, I don't know if he's still going to race this year. I have no idea. But definitely.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, collarbone, he could race again before the season wraps. What would be important to him?
Collarbone is no big deal. It's no big.
But what's left on the calendar that he would earmark if he wanted to finish out the season?
I mean, he could in theory do the Vuelta and try to win a stage there. I don't know. I mean, I think the motivation cannot be there. This number 35 is what kept him going, in my opinion. I'm not in his mind, of course. I know for a fact that he loves to ride his bike, but now that this dream is over, I think that it may be the last time that we've seen Mark Cavendish in a bike race.
The other thing I thought about after his crash, that relegation that did not happen to Philipsen yesterday becomes more significant. Because yesterday we're like, oh, Cavendish, because he got second. Had they relegated Philipsen, that would have been a win. It would have been the record, not the way he would want to win.
Yeah, that's the thing, JB. Would Cavendish want to get the record in that way?
No.
I mean, listen. I mean, there are probably. I don't know if there's any. I don't know actually if there's any wins in those 34 after somebody got relegated. Neither do I know if maybe Eddie Merckx even got one after somebody else got relegated.
Yeah.
No, right? We don't think about those things until now. We have this historical moment. So, but really to get it on relegation, I personally don't think he would want that.
So I'm going to dig back into this. Okay, we know what the old Johan is saying. Just get back on the bike in your sling. And then let's go deeper on a conversation. Like you're talking to Mark and he's like, man, Johan, do I come back? Do I not? What would you say? How would you verbalize that to him?
I would definitely let him make his own choice and definitely tell him that he needs to think about it and talk with his family. And it's a group decision, and whatever he really wants to do. I mean, I personally think a guy like Cavendish, if he would make the decision to keep going, it's because he really believes and has all the confidence in the world in him that he can break that record. But it will not change anything for him. It doesn't change anything. He is Mark Cavendish. He's the best sprinter we've seen, with the biggest palmares. And I personally, I would advise him to just call it a day. It's because it wasn't meant to be. At the end of the day, he is the record holder of the most wins in the Tour de France together with Eddie Merckx. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. And he could parlay this into some commentary if he wanted. If we could understand a word he's saying, that would help.
that's yeah.
And you probably never thought ever as a director that later you'd be doing commentary.
Never.
So you never know where it's going to go after your racing career. You never know.
No. But I don't think Mark, listen, he has 5 kids and he has a few young kids. So I think it's time he deserved and his children deserve and his wife deserves to have him around. I mean, things like this today also, I mean, let's just take away the whole drama and, of the record. But, these guys crash, and sprinters can crash hard, I mean, and cycling becomes more and more dangerous. You're getting with these young kids, and, these guys don't break.
Luckily, so a collarbone is mild, and almost every cyclist has that at some point. But yeah, something more serious.
It's nothing, but going another year, it's another year of, like pushing the limit. Like, okay, how many times more do I have an opportunity to crash? There's opportunities to win, but there's a lot of opportunities you can crash.
Yeah.
And that's also for the family. I mean, if you've gotten away with crashes and not being really injured so many times, there's also a time to say, okay, I should not push the limit too far.
Yeah. And you can attest to this. How much do you enjoy being there for your son to bike race and support him? Like,
it's amazing.
The fatherhood part. Like those who don't know, I know most of you don't think I ever raced a bike, but I did for about
I asked you once, Debbie. I know now.
But when my daughter started getting into sports, she got into water sports and eventually became a world champion. And to me, driving a boat for her and supporting her and traveling with her was so much more rewarding than anything I ever did for myself.
And as far as I can remember, Mark told me last year that he has at least one of his sons, or a few of his kids are really, really obsessed with cycling, with cycling. So I think for him, it's time to go do that now.
Okay. All right. And we covered a lot with Mark Cavendish. We'll move on from that because there were two other crashes that affected the potential podium spot. We saw both Yates and Landa go down together, and they both lost 47 seconds.
Yeah, that was close to the finish. I think it was about like between 5 and 6K to go, so outside of the 3-kilometer limit. And yeah, I mean, Adam Yates, he was in fourth position, a big candidate. Simon Yates. Simon Yates of Jayco Alula went down, got back up pretty quick, but you already know there that you're not coming back. That's it, So it changed the GC a little bit. Carlos Rodriguez is now in fourth, I guess. And then Adam Yates is in fifth, and Simon Yates is in sixth now. They got away pretty good with 40-something seconds. It could have been more, straight away on a spare bike, a few teammates with him, and just, as quickly as possible. So 47 seconds, it's, still okay. He's still there. He's still in contention for the podium, but it can happen anytime. It can also happen to Pogacar and Vingegaard and Hindley. It's all that danger is always there.
Yeah, and seeing those three people we've just mentioned, the crashes affecting the race, it just reminds me of the era with you and Lance, that how many stars have to align. It's not just being the best bike racer and the best director. There's a million stars that have to align, and it's really wild when you think back on it. Let's talk about Madison Peterson's win, which was impressive. Especially, we've been talking about Alpecin and how that duo is near impossible to beat. He did it today, and you've got some intel, some scoops on Peterson and his director. And
I
think it's interesting how racers will earmark these moments way out. Yeah. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in contact with one of his directors frequently, and I have the text here. I mean, so some riders, like the GC riders, they go and recon the crucial stages, right, of the Tour de France, the mountain stages, time trials. Other teams and other type of riders, go and recon other stages that are suitable for them. And I have this text here sent to me on the 5th of June. They went to recon today's stage into the Limousin, and he said, Tour de France stage 8, ideal for Peterson. And I had forgotten about this actually, about this text.
It would have come in handy for outcomes, huh?
I am now. I mean, that happens when you get so many texts. I had forgotten about it.
So okay,
but they came in with a plan. They came in with a plan. You could clearly see also during the stage, Lidl Trek. It's apparently we have to say Lidl Trek. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's easy just to say Little Trek.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, normally when I say little, it's always little over here too.
Little,
the supermarket, but I think they want us to say Lidl Trek to make sure that Trek doesn't sound like Little Trek. Anyways, that team took somewhat control over the race. They did a lot of work to bring that breakaway back. So they clearly came in with a plan, and they were right. I mean, if you watch the post-race interview of Jasper Philipsen, he said that he knew on beforehand that Mads Peterson would be his main rival on this finish, and he was right.
Well, he was. I would love your best intelligent guess here. When they said this is perfect for Mads Peterson, is it because it was a difficult stage throughout and a finish, or both?
Yeah, difficult stage and also a slightly uphill finish. If you look at the speed in the last 300 meters, the average speed of other sprints, it's sometimes 70, sometimes 74 kilometers per hour. Today was 54, 55 kilometers per hour because it was a 3.5% incline. So that's with huge power and less speed. And that's what Mads Peterson excels in, obviously. He's won a lot of races like that already. And also, I mean, sometimes he wins sprints when everybody's dead. Like he won the world championships like this in 2019. He won Gent-Wevelgem 1 year like this. Also after, a really hard race when everybody's dead and the speed in the sprint is not super, super high. In the Vuelta, I remember last year, every time it was a slightly uphill finish, there was nobody who came close to him. Now in the Tour de France, this is different. I mean, even a guy like Peterson today had no problem at all with the difficulties of the stage and with the incline on the finish. But I mean, Mads Peterson is, he is on his good days, he's very, very strong. Had a perfect lead out, and also let's not forget, this guy he won his first Grand Tour stage in last year's Tour de France, his first ever Grand Tour stage. And since then, back-to-back Tour de France last year, Vuelta España last year, Giro d'Italia this year, and Tour de France this year. His last 4 Grand Tours, he has won stages in all of them.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive.
That is impressive. Let's see. Oh, and I know you wanted to talk about, and this has been an ongoing theme through these first 8 stages. You wanted to talk about Jumbo-Visma's strategy today. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that tomorrow when we get to tomorrow as well.
Well, we're going to talk about it every day, JB, because it's one of the 2 strongest teams in the race. They have one of the big favorites. So the problem with Jumbo-Visma is that they have their main goal is, it's really a difficult situation they're in, because they have their main goal to win the Tour, and everything is in function of that, or should be. Now, the problem they have, which is a luxury problem, is they have a guy on the team called Wout van Aert, who is an unbelievable machine. I mean, personally, I thought back on that ride he did when Pogačar won the stage on stage 6. I thought about this morning. I said, you know what? Independently of what happened for the rest of the stages, this Wout van Aert's performance is the performance of the Tour de France. It may not be in terms of results, but what he did that day was incredible. And there's also nobody in the Tour, nobody, not even Pogačar or Vingegaard or Van der Poel, or nobody can do this. They can't go at kilometer 0. drop everybody at kilometer 0, then get in the brake, then drive the brake, go set the tempo on the first climb on the Col d'Aspin, set the tempo of the breakaway on the Tourmalet, get over it, and then pull the leaders until 5 kilometers to go, making us. There's nobody who can do that. The thing is that in order to have, I understand, he's a big champion, he wants to win stages too. And the best situation would be that Wout van Aert wins a stage, and then, he's kind of less anxious for that stage win. And he can, and I'm not saying even if he doesn't win a stage, he's still going to go 100% for the team. We saw that 2 days ago. But it is a tricky approach, because today, for example, they could easily have just set a temp, not care about the breakaway, whatever happened, the other teams would have pulled now, but they really got involved at some point in controlling the race for the stage win with Wout. And yeah, that obviously will take a lot out of certain teammates like Tish Benoot, like Dylan van Baarle, like Christophe Laporte, and others, so I understand why they're doing it, but I hope it doesn't. We've said this already many times, they're working too hard. It seems nowadays that doesn't matter anymore.
Recovery has clearly gotten better.
It's unbelievable, actually. Yeah, it is crazy. It is crazy. Like for Van Aert, today was a relatively easy stage. At the end, of course, he had to try to win, but for the team, it was not an easy stage, and they have a big day tomorrow.
Yeah. Let's elaborate a little bit more on what happened to Wout van Aert in that sprint, because we just went on and on about Mads Peterson, how fast he was over Philipsen. Wout was just as fast, but it just didn't play out for him.
Yeah. Well, I think Wout was the fastest today in terms of speed, and if you look at what happened in the sprint, so we can see it on the images here. First, we have Wout van Aert in the wheel of Christophe Laporte, ideally placed. They're in first and second position, and they have a bunch of other sprinters fighting for the wheel or trying to come up with their own lead out. But he was ideally placed. Then comes a point where Mathieu van der Poel goes with Philipsen on the wheel, and at that point, Christophe Laporte slows down, and it's difficult to him. He can't look behind, so sometimes it's just pure luck. But when Van der Poel makes his move, Laporte slows down, and Wout van Aert is crushed in between the wheel of Laporte and Van der Poel and Philipsen. And that's where basically he has to slow down really bad. You can see in the next picture that he loses 3 or 4 positions. And then finally, Van der Poel goes with Philipsen. At the same time, Pedersen comes on the right, and Van Aert is like 6th or 7th position again, and then has to come back and still finishes 3rd and comes with incredible speed. I watched. I'm in Belgium now, so I watched it on Belgian TV, right? I normally watch it on Eurosport, so I watched it on Belgian TV, and the Belgian commentators, Wout would have won this on one leg. That's not as easy as that, but for sure he was really unlucky. He had this stage in his mind. He said it this morning. This morning he was clear that yesterday he didn't want to sprint. Today was a good stage for him. They were going to try to go for it. That's what he said. And yeah, it doesn't always work out. He was there. He had everything perfect until 150 meters to go and got boxed in and had to do. And the fact that he's able to slow down, go around these guys and come back says a lot about the power of Wout van Aert.
Yeah. Once you get stopped from your progression, most people sit up. Or they can't get that speed back in that short of a time. It was remarkable.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump into tomorrow. And why don't you tell us more about this finish, that's historical significance? I think you'll find very interesting.
Yeah, well, Puy de Dôme, it's since 1988 that the Tour de France hasn't gone there. Personally, I've never done it, not as a rider, not as a director. I mean, yeah, the first time I did the tour was 1990, so 2 years before that, they did it for the last time. But there's this mythical moment and mythical cycling picture. Lots of people who follow the history of cycling will know this, of Puy de Dôme in 1964, where we had this big battle between the two French riders, Jacques Anquetil, who went on to win 5 times the Tour de France, and Raymond Poulidor, who never won the Tour, the grandfather of Mathieu van der Poel, who was sometimes second, won a lot of races, but never the Tour de France.
And you guys you've talked about him a lot. He was just loved. He was like one of the most loved cyclists ever, even though he never won.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in that period, Anquetil, who was the best cyclist, was hated. And Raymond Poulidor was just loved by everybody.
Why didn't they like Anquetil? Just dominance through that era? Because they love you until you win all the time, and then they start hating you.
The French don't like winners. If you win once, it's fine. If you win too much, then they choose for the loser, like the second.
They always go for an underdog. That's like in their nature.
Yeah, always. You can be good, but not too good. If you're too good, they don't like you anymore.
It turns quickly.
Yeah. But so we have this mythical moment of them fighting it out and touching each other. This picture is very famous, so I thought I bring that up. 1964, so actually the year I was born. Then we have Puy de Dôme, for me personally, very famous, of 1974. Which was in the big years of Eddy Merckx winning the Tour de France, and I have this little clip here of Eddy Merckx in yellow having a big fight with Bernard Thévenet, the French star, and he gets hit in the side by a French spectator. And we can see on the other pictures how these pictures are from after the stage, how hurt he was, and finally. That incident made him lose the Tour de France. I remember that very, very well because I was 10 years old then, and it was Eddy in Belgium, and this incident with Puy de Dôme was like it was a national, it was a state's affair. It was so important.
Do you recall? Were there ever? Well, who hit him? And then,
it was a French. I don't know. It was a French
fan.
French. Well, it's not. It was a French fan of Thévenet. Eddy Merckx was by then in this position, like he won too much, and you had these guys reeling behind the French guy, right? Bernard Thévenet, who finally went on to win the Tour de France twice. But yeah, that particular incident, there's two incidents of Eddy Merckx. One is that hit in his side, which didn't look like much at the beginning, but there was some kind of organ, I don't know which one, was touched, and he couldn't recover from it. And then another time, I think he had his jaw broken by somebody who hit him. But I mean, I may be wrong on that, but I do remember him riding with a broken jaw in the Tour de France. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, Eddy was back then also like Anquetil. He was the unpopular guy, way too dominant, and they were tired of him winning their race.
Wow. Interesting.
So we're going back there tomorrow.
What can you expect tomorrow?
Well, it's not an easy stage, but it's for sure going to be decided on the Puy de Dôme. It's a 13-kilometer climb with an average of 7.7%, but that average is divided in between the first 8.5 kilometers, which are kind of very accessible for most of the riders. And then the last 4.5 kilometers of this climb, it's super steep, between 11 and 12% all the time. And so, well, for sure, we're going to see a battle again between Jonas and Tadej. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anybody can follow these guys. It's to be seen how they're going to race. If Jumbo does the same thing like they've done on the Marie Blanc, where Vingegaard dropped Pogačar, and the same thing like on the Tourmalet, or if they ride it differently. Personally, if I'm in their shoes, I would say, hey, okay, we're in yellow. We don't need to make a decision here. We don't need to take the initiative. We get to the bottom of the last climb, and it's up to Pogačar and his team to try to drop us. We are in front. We're in yellow, and we are in 25 seconds ahead. So what I would do is I would focus on UAE, on Pogačar, let him put in the attacks. If Vingegaard is good, he should be able to follow them. And then maybe after 2 or 3 attacks, try to counterattack him and take advantage like that. Because if it's the same Pogačar as we've seen on the Tourmalet and on Cotteret, he's not going to drop him easily, Vingegaard. So I would try to play it like that. But, I just think they're going to ride. They're going to just
do what they've been doing.
Yeah. I think they're going to ride. They have their plan. They know how strong they are. They have Van Baarle, then they have Benoot, then they have Kelderman, and then they have Kuss and Jonas Vingegaard. That's what they're gonna do. It's the way how they race. It's probably also the way how Jonas Vingegaard knows how to race. As I said before, to me it seems like he's more a rider who races on a plan. And we do this, boom, that's it. There's not so much instinct in the race. Pogačar is completely different. He has race instinct already since his amateur years. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, they're not going to listen to us anyway. But
you might be surprised, Johan, if he's listening to you.
There are a lot of people who within the Tour de France peloton who listen to the Move, to JB Squared, La Movida. I know for a fact, and on the transfers from the hotel to the start, we're kind of heard a lot in France. Yeah.
Now, if you heard the Move earlier today, George feels like the punch count, if you want to call it that, between Pogačar and Vingegaard is about even. Lance feels very much as if the momentum has all shifted to Pogačar, because that's the last thing we saw between the two of them. What do you think? Do you think they're?
I think they're quite equal. What I could not explain was not so much that Vingegaard was so strong on the Marie Blanc. It was how Pogačar was not able to respond. He was not on his level there. And then I was really surprised also to see him the day after changed. So, you can measure and calculate anything you want. There's still human bodies that react differently. I was impressed by Pogačar, I have to say. If you compare the image of Jonas Vingegaard attacking on the Marie Blanc and leaving Pogačar behind, that's impressive. But I think it's especially impressive because Pogačar was not able to react. He just had to stay his same tempo. But if you look at the attack of Pogačar on Cotteret, that was incredible. That was super explosive, and Vingegaard tried to react, and he kept losing a little bit of time. Not as much as Tadej the day before, but the attack of Pogačar to me was more impressive than the attack of Vingegaard on the Marie Blanc. So we'll see. We'll see. I think they had a few days now to take it easy in the stage. Tomorrow, I'm going to be sitting in front of my screen. Probably saying, what the hell are these guys doing?
All right. Cool. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I think everybody is. Let's jump into our Ventum trivia of the day. You could win an NS1. Again, the concept is very simple. If you know the answer, email it in. I'll give you the email at the end. Don't send them to me. I've gotten a few of those. I'm going to send them to Ventum. Answer the question. They'll take all the right answers. The people who had the right answer draw one each day at the end of the tour. Then they're going to draw one of those names and you win a complete NS1. How cool is that? Yesterday's question, just to give you the answer for fun, was what is the longest stage ever recorded in the history of the Tour de France? The answer was the 7th stage of the 1919 edition with a distance of 482 kilometers. That's 299 miles. And you think about it, as Lance said, and the equipment they were on in 1919.
and that's not one stage. Then they had other stages which were only 430.
Incredible.
All these. I mean, I think that I've seen once a map of a Tour de France, and it was literally the Tour de France. So they started on the top and they went around just on the Tour de France, but the borders.
Yeah.
I think it was like 6 or 7 stages. That's it.
Long. Long. And what were the margins between times? I'm going to have to look some of those up.
Yeah, well,
I mean, wow.
Different world. I mean,
yeah.
You can't imagine.
Today's question, and then again, stick around, get a pen ready for the email, and you can go search the answer. You can Google it, do whatever you need to do. Which cyclist won the Tour de France immediately after World War II had ended? Which cyclist won that? All right. Search for the answer. Send it to trivia@ventumracing.com. If you have the right answer, you'll go into the drawing for today and possibly at the end of the tour. Okay. Good luck. Couple of questions for you, Johan. I know we're going a bit long here today, but exciting things have happened. I do want to do a couple questions with you. So here we go. In regards to the Maillot Jaune, does the tour simply have every teams printed on it and all the shapes and sizes prior to the tour, or how do they do that? And then the second question from Tyler is about Jonas Vingegaard. So answer that one first, and then I'll give you the other question. How do they do that?
Yeah. So the yellow jersey, no, they don't have everything prepared. What the teams have to do before the Tour de France, actually not before the tour, just at the beginning of the season, you send in your logo digitally, what you want on any leader's jersey, for example, with any race with ASO, with the Tour de France, right? So Paris-Nice and Dauphiné and Tour de France. So they have this machine at the finish, at the podium. So it doesn't matter who is in any jersey. Then they check. They know the size, and when the guy shows up for the protocol, just before it, they need 1 minute. They take the jersey, they have the size, they have the logo, they just print it on there and just goes on the podium and pulls it on. You will see, for example, that when it's a new leader in a competition, he will only have the logo printed on the front. Those jerseys are special. Not usually, it's jerseys that have a zipper in the back.
It's just for the podium.
Just for the podium, yeah. So they pull it on, and then they have the publicity on. But no, they have it. They print it there on site.
Okay, that's Tyler with that question. His second question is, how does a guy like Jonas Vingegaard, with his stature, produce so much power through the pedal?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, listen, he's 1.71 m, so that he's not very tall. What is that?
He's about 5'5".
Okay, and he weighs 60 kilos,
which is about 132 pounds.
Okay, so he's not tall. He's tiny. He's light. That's what climbers are built like. So it all comes down to the watts per kilo. Jonas Vingegaard, to develop 6.8 watts per kilo has to generate a lot less watts compared to a guy who weighs 70 kilos, which is, 68, 70 kilos is what most Tour de France riders weigh, probably, depending on their stature. So it's not the absolute amount of watts, but compared to the weight. So 6 watts per kilo for him. What is that? That's 360 watts, right? I would think, yeah, probably. 6 watts per kilo. So he's I don't know what his maximum is, but obviously he will not push the same watts as Wout van Aert, who probably weighs at least 15 kilos more.
Yeah. Who was the most impressive climber you recall because their size was so big?
No doubt, Miguel Indurain. No doubt.
What was his race size? His weight?
Miguel is probably, I would say he's probably 187, 188, which is quite tall. And in terms of weight, I would think he was, when he was really, really skinny, I think he was probably 76, 77 kilos. And that's a stretch. I think
that's about 170 pounds.
Yeah. So, but he was impressive. He looked skinny, but he was massive. And it was incredible to see him ride in the mountains, seated in the saddle, just pushing the power.
Ulrich is probably up there too on that list.
No, I think he's tall, and but Miguel was
bigger, significantly bigger. Wow, impressive. Yeah. I know. I remember, and I mentioned this earlier this tour, getting a photo with Indurain, meeting him in Austin, and just seeing this, I go, wow, the height and the size is just like I was dwarfed next to him.
I remember. I'm 1.8. How tall are you?
I lie and say 6 foot, but I'm 5'11".
Okay, well, I'm 6 foot. I'm 6 foot. I'm 183. And so I remember Miguel in Belgium the day after Liège. Or was it? No, it was actually the day after the time trial when. So I got the yellow jersey when I won the stage with him. Then he took it off me in the time trial, and then the day after we had a transfer day to the Alps, and so the Belgian press wanted a picture of him and me, and when he shook my hand, it was like this big hand,
Mm-hmm.
So wow, that was kind of like really like scary.
Yeah, and people forget when you're bigger on the bike, people get out of your way. They did for me. He's just
not a lot of people. Not a lot of people went into his way. I know that.
You're going to give Miguel Indurain whatever he wants. Hey, great questions, Tyler. Appreciate it. If you want to ask Johan a question for a future show, send it in JB2 JB squared at wedo.team. And we'll be back tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to this duel in the mountains here. This is going to be good. Thank you, Johan.
Okay. Thanks, JB. Speak tomorrow.